Howard, I'm excited to begin our conversation. I feel like we have a lot in common. We were both influenced by our families. You began working at your father's market in Seattle, and I began helping my parents at the food bank as a child. We both believe in giving until it hurts and the concept of servant leadership. So I read that you were looking for a place to work where dreams and success were the same, and it turned out to be Starbucks. Can you tell us about the three human beings that came to be known as H2O at Starbucks? How did you all start your life?
Well, the most interesting thing about the three of us, there was two Howards and an Orrin, and that's how H2O came about. And Howard Schultz came from a very poor family raised in outside of Brooklyn, New York, in a place called Canarsie. And his father, the biggest job he ever had was as a diaper delivery truck driver, and he got hurt on the job and had no insurance. And so Howard learned from a very early age the meaning of not having any resources to help when your family was in trouble. Orrin Smith was raised in Chehalis, Washington. Most people will know, a farming community, kind of like the Valley is. Mm-hmm. And he had a single mother, head of household, 5 children with a father that had left the family, and his mother had to support all the kids. And so here's Orrin, who was the oldest, having to make sure that the rest of the kids got what they needed. And then me, I was raised by 2 immigrant parents that both came to Seattle in the early 1900s, and my father worked at the Pike Place Market actually in 1911 as a 15-year-old. And he taught me the value of hard work, and they survived the Depression. So we came from not much. What we had in my family was food on the table. The produce might have been a little bruised and brown, and we didn't always have the freshest of fruit, but we always had food on the table. And so the three of us really came to Starbucks believing the same thing, that it was supporting people and serving people that really mattered in the work that we did. And that's what drove Starbucks right from the beginning. It was always about the people and always about finding ways to serve the people. We wanted to be able to walk down the hallway in Starbucks and look at everybody in the face and say that we were all in it together. And that's how we built the company. That's how it's run today.
Absolutely. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings myself, and I know what that's like, making sure that I can take care of my younger siblings, and my parents just always tried their best to make sure that we had food on the table, even if it was just rice and beans. But to this day, I still love just having a bowl of beans, and sometimes my siblings joke about that.
It's the basic things that make us the happiest.
It's the basic things, yes, that's right. So what did servant leadership look like at Starbucks? How did that get started?
Well, I had been introduced to servant leadership. A man named Robert Greenleaf, who was the head of organizational development at AT&T in the 40s and 50s, when he retired, he wrote a little booklet called The Servant is Leader, or The Leader is Servant, excuse me. And he drove that concept, and he came to the conclusion after all his research that the leaders that did the best were those that understood intrinsically that they were there to serve their people, not be served by their people. And so that's what I brought to Starbucks, was this idea that if we were really going to grow our organization, that first thing we had to focus on was helping our people grow and helping our people get what they wanted out of their lives before they could really help the organization and grow. And that's what servant leadership is basically all about. It's making sure that you as a leader are doing the things that are necessary to help your people become all that they can be. And in so doing, they help the organization be all it can be. And it's that old, we help each other along the way. But you, as a leader, you have to be the first one to put out the hand and say, I'm here to help you. And that's what we did.
I remember hearing about Starbucks being tested, that one of their employees was facing a health crisis. Can you tell us about that? How did that experience define the values of Starbucks?
Well, I had just joined Starbucks. I was actually there about 3 months, and I got a call from a store manager named Jim who ran one of our stores in Seattle. And he called me up and he said, Howard, I'd like to come see you and the other Howard Schultz. And I said, sure, Jim, what is it about? I was trying to be the good executive, good leader, and trying to figure out what he wanted before he came. And he said, well, I just need to see the two of you, and I'll tell you when I get there. So I set up the meeting with Howard Schultz and myself, and the day arrived, and Jim came to the front desk, and they called me, and I went down and got him, and we went up to Howard Schultz's office. And Howard Schultz had a little love seat in his office, and both Jim and I sat next to each other, and Howard happened to be on the phone. And so we're waiting for him to get off the phone, and we were making small talk, and finally Howard hung up the phone, and we started talking. And so, being an A-type personality, I said to him, hey, Jim, so what can we do for you? Trying to get to, what he wanted.
Get to the point.
And he get to the point, which I was kind of sorry I did after I did that. And he said, well, I need to tell you both something. I'm dying of AIDS. Wow. And now, in those days, these were really early days. This was in the late 80s. People didn't know a lot about AIDS. We really didn't know that much. Was it a virus that just transmitted by sitting next to somebody? And I remember to myself, I don't think I consciously did it, but subconsciously maybe I slid over just a hair, because of that insureness. And so Howard Schultz asked Jim, well, what does that mean? What can we do for you? He said, well, I'd like to work as long as I can work, and I don't know how long that will be, but I really need to work, to support myself. And now remember, Starbucks was in the food service business, and Starbucks was this little tiny company in those days, 28 stores when I started. And he just looked at Jim and he said, Jim, you can work as long as you feel healthy enough to work. And when you stop working, when you feel you can't work anymore, then we will still go on supporting you. We will pay your full salary as long as you're alive. And remember, this company was losing money in those days, so it wasn't like it was going to break us, but we had no idea what it was going to cost. And then Howard asked Jim a question. He said, Jim, how are you going to cover your health insurance when you're no longer working? And Jim said, well, there's some agencies around that are helping people like me that have contacted AIDS, and they're there to help. And Howard said, absolutely not. You'll be on our health insurance again until the day you die. We're here to help you. Now, you put it in the context. For me, I'm there 3 months. Now, I believed in servant leadership and helping people. That's how I got to Starbucks. Howard Schultz had that in common. The two of us had that in common. But when Howard did that, he was a very young guy at the time. Howard was like 33 at the time. When Howard did that, that told me, really reinforced that I was in the right place. That was the kind of place that I wanted to be, where you would do what it took to help another human being, even if it cost you. See, a lot of people say, I really care, but very few people really do the things that mean that you care. And that means sometimes you've got to take your own resources and give them to another human being. And that experience went throughout the company. Everybody heard about it. Everybody understood it, and it became part of the myth of Starbucks that we will do anything to help another human being. And I can't tell you how many times we spent company resources to help somebody that was sick, where one of our people, we even had store manager give a kidney to a customer once because they needed it. And we encouraged those kind of things because we were there to help other human beings. And so that little experience taught me right away that I could do anything that I needed to do to serve another human being within inside of Starbucks. A very valuable experience. And
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine going into that room and having to explain that to you, saying, I've already thought about how I'm going to handle this, and I just want to let you know, and then getting a response so unexpected and so life-changing.
Yeah, I don't think he ever thought that's what was going to happen. I think he thought, well, he won't be able to work. But here we said, you're going to work as long as you can work, and we'll take care of you when you can't. And it was, I think that was one of those things that had such a huge impact on the company. It's really lasted forever.
So one of the things that's the most important for community action is to listen deeply, especially to those whose voices might be silenced, and then respond in service. In your book, It's Not About the Coffee, you have 10 principles. One is to listen for the truth. What do you mean by this principle?
Well, listen for the truth means that you have to listen with more than your ears. And you have to go in not knowing and being a great listener. Too often we go in listening and we already have formed opinions about something somebody is saying, and we can't wait until we're able to get our opinion back out, versus just being quiet and listening and really absorbing what that person is saying to you, because their truth might be different than our truth. We might face the same exact issue and come out with a different truth, and so we have to understand where they are, not where we think they should be. And so listening for the truth is that being quiet, quieting your brain, and being fully engaged with that other human being, not knowing the answer, just being willing to open your ears and also to open your brain to what they're saying, and opening your heart primarily. Right.
That reminds me of when I was at the food bank volunteering on Saturday. And right now, as you know, people are going through a drive-through through the food bank, and there was this elderly man that was coming through. And as he pulled up, so I'm, right there in front, and he's driving through in his truck. And I'm doing intake, and I just normally, I check in and say, "What's your name?" And then I try to do that. I listen. And I pick up on, what's going on with this person? What's their face telling me? What is a moment of silence? What does that mean? So as I was checking in with him, I could tell that something was up. And I could feel just so much worry with him. And I said, how was your week? And he looks at me and he says, I just lost my job. I've had this job for 3 years, and now I don't know what I'm going to do. So I think of this similar to like when a customer goes and orders a drink at Starbucks, and you only have about 30 seconds to check in with that human being across from you. How do we show people that we care about them?
You have to listen with your antenna. You have to completely, not just listen with your ears, but you got to use your eyes and your antenna. You got to feel the emotion and feel what's going on with that person in front of you. I used to say to our baristas that they were social workers, and they had 10 seconds to determine where that person was in front of them without them even saying a word, and it's amazing when you tune yourself into others, what you learn about them very quickly.
How can we encourage our community to take that extra step, to put our antennas up?
I think by just being aware, by asking questions. When you're walking down the street and you see a homeless person sitting out with a cup, don't just pass them by. Take a minute and talk to them. Ask them, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? Are you getting what you need? Are you getting any help? Are you getting any assistance? And how are you feeling today? Anything. Treat them as a whole human being that they are. Right. Not looking down on them because somehow they are homeless or they're struggling in their life, because there but for the grace of God could all of us go. And that's what we need to do, and that's what communities are about, is always checking in with people, always listening to what's going on in your community, paying attention to the things that are not said, and really never passing anybody by. I remember one day I was going to hear a speech of a great Holocaust survivor, and we were going to the theater, and my wife and I were walking up the street in downtown Seattle by the Paramount Theater, and here was a homeless man with a cup out, and as I was going, for some reason I just picked in my pocket and I took out a $20 bill and I put it in his cup, and I said, "Get yourself something to eat." And now he, the truth of the matter is he had a bottle and a bag, and he was having a sip, and there was a piece of me that went into a little bit of judgment. He's spending his money on alcohol. And we got to the theater, and here was this, and we were listening to the speech, and here was this man telling us, don't judge others by what they do. When you give something to somebody else, that means that you're giving it to them. You're not judging what they do with it. It's their responsibility to figure out what they want to do with it. If they want to buy some alcohol, or if they want to buy some food, that's up to them. And when we're helping others, we cannot sit in judgment.
Right. We have to just give with our full heart. If that's our intention, to try to be helpful, then we can do that. But the moment we start judging every single thing, then really, like, what's the point?
Right.
So COVID has brought this tragedy like none other. It has really brought to the surface a cascade of tragedies in our community, with the people, in our families, and in our society. In your book, you share a story about a tragedy that happened at Starbucks in 1997. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah. I remember it so well. I was at home in Seattle, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from a regional vice president in Washington, D.C. And he said to me, he said, we've had a disaster. Now, what went through my head was we've had a fire, we've had, a robbery, the building, I don't know, whatever it was. It wasn't what I expected when he said, he said to me, 3 of our people have been murdered in one of our stores, the store in Georgetown. I mean, I just about, I just went down, how my shoulders came down. And I said, what happened? And he said, we don't know for sure, but, the police are investigating it. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning. It was just when our store was supposed to open. And I mean, we'd never had anything like that happen at Starbucks. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think by selling a cup of coffee that 3 young people would lose their lives. Well, I immediately got on the phone with Howard Schultz, who happened to be in New York at that time, and I said, Howard, you need to get to Washington, D.C. right away. And so Howard got to Washington, D.C., and he went to the store, and of course the yellow tape was surrounding the building, and the police were there, and the press was there. And of course everybody wanted to get to Howard Schultz. All the press wanted to get to Howard Schultz. I mean, he didn't know what had happened. He just sort of arrived himself, but he, his lawyers would have said, Howard, don't talk to the press. But Howard's not that kind of person. Howard, immediately, when the press wanted to interview him, he said, okay, I'm happy to talk with you. I don't have all the answers, but I'll answer any question that I can for you. So he immediately talked to him, and he didn't make any excuses. He just said, I don't know what happened, but I promise you that we'll get to the bottom of it. We'll figure out what happened. And, he was crying because on camera, and he felt that, even though it certainly wasn't Howard Schultz's fault, he wasn't there, there was nothing he could have done, he still took the responsibility as a CEO should have taken, and said, we own this and we'll figure out what's going to come. He didn't worry about any lawsuits, nothing. And then he got the names and the addresses of all 3 of these young people's families, and he called them on the phone and asked if he could come visit them. And he went one by one, from one family to the next family to the next family, and stayed with them 2 or 3 hours and talked to them, and told all of them that Starbucks would be there for all 3 of the families. We would do whatever it took, and that he didn't worry about what the families were going to do or what they weren't going to do. He just said, we're here for you. And, I mean, that's one of those kind of things where companies get sued all the time. Right. It's just the way that it is in life. But he wasn't worried about that. What he was worried about were those 3 families. Well, of course, we closed the store for a long time. We rebuilt the store, and we dedicated all the profits to nonviolence in Washington, D.C. of that store. And it was a humbling experience for the whole company. We had a huge service at Georgetown University, and I remember being there, and the whole place was just full of people that worked at Starbucks. We closed all the stores, so everybody that wanted to come could go to that service, to pay respects to these 3 young people who had been murdered senselessly over nothing, over a robbery that had gone bad. And I will never forget that instance. But I think what it showed to me was that you do the right thing, no matter what it may cost you. You step up to take care of the people that are hurting. Even if you get sued, so what? Doesn't make any difference. Do the right thing. If the press has a question, if you don't have the answer, tell them and tell them you'll get back to them. If you do have the answer, be truthful, be honest. Tell them what you know and tell them what you don't know. Don't avoid taking responsibility. Take accountability. Even though it may not have been you. It wasn't Howard. He wasn't there, and something bad happened. But he still is the CEO of the company, and so he owned what happened. There's no escaping that. And it was, I think, another valuable lesson for the company of the right thing to do in times of crisis, in times of pain.
Yeah, as a CEO, he really showed up for the community, for his employees. He was there when it happened. He responded not only to the families to check up on them, but then he also followed up with what change can he make to prevent something from happening again.
Right.
What do you think that we can learn from this? What can we learn from him as a CEO to lead us when a tragedy strikes?
That you have to step right in and you have to own it. You can't go hide someplace. You don't have to have all the answers. That is not maybe not your role. But you certainly have to be willing to share what you do know. And you can't be afraid to do it. And it's people count. It's people first. Families first, not business first. And I think that's the biggest lesson, is that you don't focus on the business, you focus on the people and the needs of the people, no matter what it costs you. Because at the end of the day, that's all that counts anyway. You can't run a business without people, and any organization without people. And so you focus on their needs first, and the rest of it will self. And by the way, that's exactly what happened. Everybody gathered around the company and supported the organization, and the families respected what we did, and we helped them as best as we could. I mean, what a tragedy to lose. One of the people that got killed was a young man that was 18 years old. It was his first job ever, and it was first week on the job. His parents were so proud that he'd gotten a job at Starbucks. And here, a week later, he's dead. Now, who would have ever thought of that? So it was our responsibility to do everything we could to help that family deal with the situation and help the community. And that's what you got to learn. It's not the business, it's the people first.
Yeah, he showed up in a time where a lot of people were scared, and he let his heart take the lead.
Right.
Historians tell us that in times of great and widespread crisis and tragedy, fear can really drive us apart and cause us to seek a scapegoat for our fears. For me, I just want my community to know, like, I'm proud to be a Mexican American. I'm proud of my immigrant roots. And you don't have to be afraid of my friend who is suffering from a mental illness. And you don't have to be afraid of my neighbor who doesn't have a place to live. I often see Starbucks in our community serving coffee and having newspaper available for our homeless neighbors. What do you think are some of the values that Starbucks can teach us and have left an impact on us?
I think that we're about community. And that means that you act in accordance with that idea. That if there's a homeless person on the street, we own it. It's not somebody else's fault, somebody else's responsibility. We own it in the communities in which we live. And now, most of the things we did for people were the people that worked at Starbucks, but we would take care of them, because you got to start at home first. And we had a program called the Cup Fund, and that's where money went into this fund. And anytime a Starbucks partner had a need, they could go to that Cup Fund and apply for a small grant, whatever it happened to be, to make a rent payment or whatever it is. And so we always started at home first, but starting at home led us to understanding that we also have a responsibility outside of our home, and that is in the community in which we live. And not just the little community, not just the Bellinghams or the Mount Vernons or the Burlingtons or whatever it happens to be, but in the broader community. So in the world in which we operate, we buy lots of coffee around the world. Well, we can't buy coffee in Guatemala and not pay the right price for the coffee. We have to do the right things no matter where we are, because no matter where we are, we can't soil the earth that we live on. We can't abuse the people that we buy things from or serve to, or that work with us, or that live in our communities. We have to take on responsibility of the whole. Now, Starbucks can't solve every problem there is. It's impossible. No organization can. But we can do our piece, and we can make sure that we're open and that we're willing to listen and willing to at least do our best. And, most of the things we do is have a safe place for people to come and have a cup of coffee. Or not have a cup of coffee. You can walk into a Starbucks store and not buy anything and just sit there and work on your computer. And nobody's going to kick you out. And, that's about serving the community too, in kind of a different way. But it's understanding that we are part of the whole. We cannot separate ourselves out.
I think that sends a big message is, anyone is welcome here. You can sit here, you can have a cup of coffee, you can do your work, you can have a space to study, as a college student, and we could open more doors like that in our community.
And we're not perfect. We've made our mistakes and have done things that I'm not proud of, and we've paid prices for those, and we've learned from them, but we've grown from them. But overall, I am proud of how we have acted in its totality.
So despite all that pulls us apart during these times, we see such a yearning for positive change from a new generation. We are seeing leaders of high school and college age take on climate change, gun safety, and racial inequality with an eye to systemic change. Starbucks is fueled by young and informed workforce. How do you see this next generation changing Starbucks and the world?
Well, I mean, change is constant. Change has been constant at Starbucks. When I first started at Starbucks, you never saw anybody with a tattoo, right? And you could only wear one earring, right, in each year. And now you see everything has changed. Society changes. Starbucks has to move with it. I don't know that we'll ever get way out in front of it, but we have to move with it. And that means that we have to listen to our people, because they're the ones that are out in front of it. They're the ones that are hearing what's going on and seeing what's going on. And so, it's the young people's future, not mine. I'm 76 years old. My job now is to support young people in their journeys and making sure they're getting the resources that they need, getting the educations that they need to carry this world forward in a better way than maybe I did, or certainly in a different way than I did. And so that means you got to listen to them. And we have lots of issues going on. We have social issues that are going on. Now, this is not our first bout. When I was growing up, in the 60s, we had the civil rights movement. It was tough times during those days, trying to listen to each other. And we're kind of going through that again and trying to get to the next step and the next place. And young people are taking on that charge. And I think it's their responsibility to do it. It won't happen without them. And it's always been the way, is that they're always willing to challenge the status quo and say, we have to do things differently. And so, we're proud to support it as best as we can. I think people would always have us do more than maybe that we do, but we always try to be leaders in it, particularly in social policy. And I think it's really important. It's kind of what the coffee business is all about. It's the coffee house. It's the place where people discuss things and argue about things and have conversations about things, and that's what should happen.
It's learning and adapting and listening to what's not being said, providing the space for people to talk. And for me, I think about, what's the next step? My parents taught me at a young age that we can stand up for what we believe in, and that we can go to the streets and do a protest or stand up for social justice. But what's the next step? How can we work to make changes in policy that will make lasting change? And so tonight's event is called Spirit of Hope, and giving hope is the most essential way community action seeks to serve. How can I, as one person, help others find hope? And Howard, this is a big question. In other words, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time. One little bite at a time. You can't solve the whole. You have to take the issue and break it into pieces. I mean, and we see it all over the world. When it's done that way, we're able to solve problems. When we get overwhelmed by the largeness of the issue, then we freeze and we get the word that you use, fear. Fear comes out of us. We can't, and the words come into our head, oh, we just can't get that done. But there is nothing that we can't do together, not one single thing that we can't solve. We can solve homelessness, we can solve food deprivation, we can solve the issues that are faced us, and we can't be afraid. Sometimes we're afraid, well, we'll never have the money to do all that, or we're going to have to raise taxes, or we're going to have to do all that stuff. Sure, we'll have to all contribute a little bit more, but none of us are going to get hurt because of it. None of us are going to not be able to support ourselves because of it. And we just have to be willing to work with the organizations in our communities to help them achieve what they need to achieve, and make sure that we're getting the results that we need to get. And not looking at the people that need the help with that they're not deserving, but looking at them with love in your heart and understanding that they too are deserving. And we can do it. There's nothing we can't do, and that's what this organization is all about. And we're going to produce the results that we need to do in the communities in which we operate, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Right. And I heard you once say that once we offer that support, the commitment does not end there. It's just the beginning.
That's right.
What's the story behind that? What's your experience with this?
Well, just talking, it doesn't do the job, right? We can we can go to the meetings and we can say, yes, I agree, yes, but we got to take the time. We got to give the time. And we got to give, if we don't have time and we have a little bit of resource, doesn't take a lot, we got to give that help with the resources. But that you have to step up. You always hear, companies are always saying, well, we really care about our people. But caring only matters if you do something. Talk is cheap. Action is what makes things happen. And you don't have to be the leader of anything. You can be a great follower and a great supporter and take little steps in helping your community be better. And it's by supporting your nonprofits with resources, with encouragement, with talking to your neighbors. Don't let anything go unsaid when it needs to be said. And together we can accomplish it.
It's really listening again, like you keep saying,
right,
and finding out how you can really make a difference. So one of the most important roles for community action is to change our community's attitudes and approaches towards people experiencing poverty and homelessness and hunger, amongst other issues. And how do we build a society rooted in love and equity? What would our community look like?
Well, for me, it would look like where we have enough introspection that we could understand that there but for the grace of God go I. That any one of us at any time could hit the wall. You could get cancer, right? And you could have all the money in the world, but you've got cancer. There's nothing going to save you except for hopefully doctors can help you. You could lose your job. Things could be going along and all of a sudden, and you're paying all your bills and you're doing everything, and all of a sudden you don't have a job. And that's happening to a lot of people today. Or look at COVID, right? I mean, people that, living a healthy life, and all of a sudden, they breathe in from somebody else that's sick, and before you know it, they're in the hospital on a ventilator and they don't live. And the family is decimated. Never saw it coming. So anything can happen at any time. And we have to understand that we are as vulnerable as the next guy. We can't be judges here. We have to be participants in this world in which we live. And it's so easy to say the words I care, but then not take the actions that really mean that you care. And that's what's going to make the difference, is what you do. Again, not what you say. And I just think that, I have a responsibility to help the communities in which I live, and even broader than the communities in which I live. We have a group of students, for undocumented students that are going to the universities now. We have 14 students. About half of them are in Walla Walla and half of them are in the valley, and to help them do things. And because we looked at the issue and we said, we have to participate. We can't just avoid it. If we're going to have a better society for all of us, then we have to help the people that are in need and the people that are struggling with whatever it happens to be. And that's my opinion. Don't just talk. And everybody wants to have a better life. And everybody wants to be treated with respect and dignity. Everybody wants to grow as human beings. Everybody wants to love and be loved. And, I think as a community and as people, our major role in life is to try to help people have those things. Everybody.
How do we make that happen? How do we look back and say, what I'm doing every day, or what I'm doing on the weekends, what I'm doing in my work, it's all for positive change, that what I'm doing for my community is actually making a difference in people's lives? What do we look at to guide our way?
Well, I think you have to evaluate yourself every day. I have a mission statement that goes like this. Every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then others. And the reason why I say self first is what I've learned is if I'm not okay with me, it's very difficult to help another human being. And so, but I try to nurture and inspire the human spirit every day, no matter what it is. Sometimes it's just picking up a piece of paper off the street, contributing to my community by making the street a little cleaner. Can you imagine if everybody in Bellingham or Mount Vernon or Burlington saw a piece of paper or a can and picked it up and put it in the garbage? We'd never have anything on the streets. It'd always be clean. And so it's taking the actions that are necessary to make things happen. And that's how it works in life. And you have to, that mission statement, drives my life. And everybody, you don't all have to have a personal mission statement, but you have to have a belief in why you're here, what you're here to do, what you're here to accomplish. And it has to be bigger than you. It's got to be something that draws you towards it. A purpose in life that is bigger than just fulfilling your own needs, helping others get what they need out of life. And if you can do that, even if it's just a little tiny bite, even if it's going to the food bank and dropping off a bag of groceries, even if it's only giving $5 to one of your local organizations, even if it's going to the school and helping some young child learn how to read, even if it's supporting some undocumented student that needs a little help, maybe needs a little coaching, even if it means going over to your neighbor's house when they're struggling with something and maybe cooking a meal because they're sick. Anything. Do something to help another human being. Serve others, because at the end of the day, the only reason any of us are put on this earth is to serve other human beings. And so we have to try to do that every day, even if it's in just a small, tiny way.
Yes, I think to myself, what are my eyes doing? How can I see better every day? How can I listen better every day? How can my hands do better every day? How can my feet do better every day? How am I showing up every single day to be a better person, and making sure that what I'm seeing, I'm able to speak about and help others with it. In my neighborhood, there's a bunch of kids, and they were all running around, and I was thinking about them, and with school not being in session, they were just trying to make some fun. And so I got a bunch of books donated to us, and I decided, what am I going to do with all these books? I can pass them out, but I don't have any children. So as I saw the kids in my neighborhood, I thought, why don't I see if this one little girl wants a book? So I go and I give her an option to look at the box that I had, and I say, would you like a book? And she looks at me and she says, I'll take the whole box. And so I was like, all right, you go ahead. I'm sure this will be good for you. And then before I know it, she comes over the next day and says, do you have any more books for me? And I say, yes, I have 3 more boxes. And so she's like, I'll take them. I said, okay. So I go back inside my house after I give them to her, and I'm just doing some work at home. And by then it turns out to be 6 o'clock, and my husband comes home and he says, hey, the little girl out front is handing out books. And she asked me what kind of books that I liked. What kind of topics am I into? And I said, did she really? And he's like, yeah, check out this book about dinosaurs. And so I look outside, and there she is, handing out books to everyone in our neighborhood. And it just makes me think about, here I did this one little action, offering a little girl a book. And before I know it, she decided to give books out to everyone in the community, including my husband. So
it's amazing how that happens.
Yeah.
I try to go home every night and look in the mirror and say, Howard, how did you do today? And it's how did I do against my mission statement and my core values? And I think all of us need to do that. We need to ask ourselves every day, how did we do today? Who did we help today by just smiling?
Right.
Who did we help today by picking a piece of paper off the street? Who did we help today by just giving a little girl a book?
Yeah. I think we each can look at ourselves and say, what drives me? What's my why? What's my own personal mission? What do I value? Who do I want to be, and who do I want to become? In today's world, there's institutions and companies and organizations that often take on society's... Oh, sorry.
Start from the beginning of that question.
Okay, I'm going to start over. Thanks.
Okay.
In today's world, institution, companies, and organizations often act on society's behalf to help individuals and communities. What kind of impact can Starbucks have on a single customer in a single community?
Well, it starts with when they come through that door, how do we treat them? Right? Do we treat them with respect and dignity and care? Not that they're just coming in and they have a dollar pasted to their forehead, and if we just say the right thing, we'll get that dollar. But rather, what can we do to help them have a better day, no matter what it is? And if we start that way, and we do that as many times as we can, that bleeds out, because when somebody leaves our store feeling better about themselves, because maybe we knew their name, maybe we knew their drink, or maybe we asked them something about their family in a real caring way, that then they feel better about themselves. They go out and do it to the next person. I got to tell you a great story. Mm-hmm. So I was in one of Starbucks drive-thrus, and I was going through the drive-thru, and I got up to the front and I went to order my drink, and the barista said, now I have a discount card. I get 30% off for every drink I get. So I don't mind paying for them. And I got up to the front, and the barista said, no, you don't have to pay for that. The person in front of you paid for that. I said, what? I said, I don't know that person. She said, yeah, but she paid for not only your drink, but the one behind you. And I said to myself, okay, let's keep this going. So I said, okay, the next 20 drinks are on me. Just put them on my card. And it went through, and you know what, 140 people went through that drive-thru that day getting their drinks paid for. A little way of helping people to have a better day because somebody cared about them.
Right.
It's the most amazing thing to see what human beings giving to each other can accomplish and what they can do. And when you get in the spirit of giving, right, it's contagious.
Right.
And you want to just keep it, you want that feeling. It's the adrenaline, that rush. You want to feel better about yourself. So if you want to feel good today, give something to another human being.
It's that surprise that, this stranger decided to make my day better. What did I do to even deserve this? And it does make a difference when someone does that.
It's like the little girl with the book. That's just what you did.
You don't know where that's going to lead.
No.
Can you tell us the story about Jim and I think he would get a treat every day and he collected the bags? Yes.
Oh yeah, Jim was an older gentleman who lived in California, in Santa Monica, across from one of our stores. And he lived in a nursing home, and every day he would come in about 2 o'clock and he would go up to the counter and he'd order a short drip coffee and a blueberry muffin. Now many times in the early days we didn't have a blueberry muffin for Jim because we'd usually sell them out by then, but after about 2 weeks everybody got accustomed that Jim was coming in every day. And they'd always kept a blueberry muffin for him. And Jim would stay for an hour, and he would talk with the baristas, and they'd make fun and tell jokes. And Jim was he was an ex-football player, a big, huge guy, big hunking guy, and he loved football. But every day when he'd come in, the baristas would, as they'd hand him his drink in a cup or the muffin in a bag, they would write something on the bag or the cup. Hey, Jim, we love you. Or he was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so that somebody might write, hey, Jim, the Steelers suck. Or just something to make him laugh or make him know that those people cared about him. And, Jim it went on for about 2 years where Jim was coming in all the time. And one day, no Jim. 3 o'clock passes, no Jim. Finally, one of the baristas said, I wonder where Jim is today. And so they got the coffee, the short drip, and the blueberry muffin, and walked across the street to the nursing home and went to the front desk and says, Jim didn't show up today. Where is he? And the person at the front desk, a little tear came down her face and said, I'm sorry to tell you, but Jim passed away in his sleep last night. Well, he went back to the store. It was devastating for those people. Jim wasn't a customer. He was their friend. He was a human being that they cared deeply about, and he cared about them. And so the next day, one of Jim's children came into the store and went to the store manager and said, I know that you know Jim passed away, and I know Jim would really appreciate it if the whole crew could come to his funeral. Now, it was a big deal trying to figure out how they'd staff the store with Jim, so they could all go to Jim's funeral. But the store manager said, yes, we will all be there, absolutely. So they show up at the home where they were going to have the service for Jim. And as they walk through the front door, here were these 3 huge round tables. You know, like when you're going to a big meeting and you're sitting at the tables either to make notes or you're having meals, and there's 10 people can sit around, so they're a pretty good sized table. Those tables were full with all the bags and the cups that Jim had been given by all the baristas with all the little sayings on them. Who would have ever thought that those little things would have been so meaningful to a human being? Little tiny things. Jim, we love you. Hey, Jim, the Steelers suck. But what it meant to Jim is that they cared about him, that they loved him. And so those things had meaning to him. And it's the little things that we do in life that really count a lot. They don't need to have to be big things. You don't need to give, $1,000 away. You can give $5 away. You just walk down the street, smile at somebody and say, hi, how's your day going? Getting into an elevator, and don't just be there with your head down, but say good morning to everybody. I used to do that always at Starbucks. Sometimes it'd make people feel uncomfortable. And I said, all right, so they're uncomfortable. But it makes me feel better, and hopefully it made them feel better. And so it's all the things that we do to create a better world to live in for all people. And it's amazing how just those little things of the bags and the cups gave Jim a better life.
Yeah. I try to, when I'm walking down the sidewalk, I look at the person walking across from me and I just, say hi. And people that are walking with me are like, do you know them? I say, no, but I just want to say hello.
Yeah.
Or the other day I was at one of the stores and there was this elderly man there and he's cleaning up the restrooms. And I just said, thank you, your job is making these restrooms clean for us, and I really appreciate it. And again, someone said, do you know him? I said, no, but he's making these restrooms clean for me. I appreciate that. He's working hard. So what do you think inspires Starbucks to serve its staff, customers, and the communities something more than just coffee?
It goes back to H2O. It came from our core. It came from what our values were as not only 3 individuals. It wasn't just us, by the way. We said here, here's what we believe in. Here's what we believe our values, but you have to come and put your own things on top of that and make it all yours. But it was caring about people, because you have to, like I said, you can't expect your people to care if you don't care about them first. And that's what drove it. And the 3 of us, coming from where we came from, we didn't come from much. We never expected to have much. And here we were building this organization. We said, this is how we want to do it. We gave everybody stock options. We gave everybody health care. Part-time workers all had health care. Everybody, now they can complete their last 2 years of college by going to Arizona State online, and Starbucks pays for it. In China, for example, we pay for health insurance for families of the people that are working in our organizations. And, it's not just that, but most importantly, it's treating people with respect and dignity. Understand that it's the things that we do that show that we care about them as a human being that really count. It's not the money we give them or the benefits at the end of the day. It's showing that we respect them and that they have value. And that's what made it work. And that came from what Howard and Orrin and I believe.
Right, just treating the person across from you with dignity and respect every single time that you meet them, that you see them, and just showing up, taking action.
Right.
You have written that yes is the most powerful word in the world. Why?
Oh. Well, we, as little children, we grow up, if you can possibly think back, if you can, you're 11 months old. You can't walk, right? But you can crawl really fast, right? And you're in the living room and you look out and there's a coffee table. And on the coffee table is this beautiful vase with some really bright, shiny flowers on it. And you look at that, and you're on your hands and knees, and you're just crawling right across the floor as fast as you can get there. And you put your hands up on the top of the cup, and you're pulling yourself up, and you get up there, and you go to reach for those flowers, and all of a sudden, from across the room, you hear from, "Hey, no, don't touch those," right? And that's the beginning of the journey of thinking that no is the most powerful word in the English language. Because no matter where we go in life, we hear people saying no. No, you can't. No, you're not good enough. A teacher saying no, you'll never become. A boss saying no, you can't, you just are not capable. A parent saying no to their children, you're not a good person. Whatever it happens to be, no comes in lots of different forms. And so we grow up and we get to be 18 years old and we get our first job. We walk into a Starbucks store and we think to ourselves, well, now I'm 18, I can say no. I have the power to say no. But no doesn't work, does it? If you come into a Starbucks store and I'm always saying no to you, whatever way that is.
That wouldn't go very well.
No, you can't use the bathroom, or no, I won't replace that coffee for you, or no, I don't have time to listen to you, whatever the no is, right? You're not coming back. And so I've always believed that the most powerful word in the English language is yes. Yes, we can. Yes, you are good enough. Yes, I will help you. Yes, I want to do something for you. Yes, I'll replace that cup of coffee without even knowing that without the person even saying anything, just being aware that something is wrong. And it's yes is the most powerful word. And yet we grow up thinking that no, if we can finally say that word no, then we're an adult. It's the opposite of it. We're an adult when we finally understand that the word yes is all meaning, all purposeful, and is the most powerful word in our language.
Right. Yes, I believe it. Yes, I have dignity. Yes, I'm qualified, right? What would happen if we started to believe all the yeses instead of all the nos?
Yeah, it would change our world, wouldn't it?
It really would. What advice would you leave community action, its staff, volunteers, and supporters today?
Believe in what you're doing, number one. Understand that the journey is long, it's arduous, you're not going to get everything done. But believe in the greater purpose of what you're trying to accomplish and stay with it. Never give up. Even when you get setbacks. What's the dance of life? 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Right.
That's the way that it is. That's the dance of life. You got 2 steps forward, you're always going to be a step that's going to come back. But you got to keep in the dance, stay in the dance. Do the things that you need to do to move it forward, and believe. And keep continuing to care about the people that you're serving, and you'll make it happen eventually. And if it isn't you, it'll be the person that comes along behind you. And you'll have left a foundation for them to achieve more on. And that's how the world works. It's not just what we do, it's a foundation that we build for the next person to stand on that makes a difference. So I certainly am proud of what the organization is doing and what it's accomplished and what it will continue to accomplish. So my advice, stay with it.
Thank you, Howard, for your continued support, for being a leader in our community. As a girl who spends her Saturdays volunteering, reflecting, and having rich conversations rooted in honesty, I can say you have given me so much hope. I admire you deeply, and I thank you for your continued support to our community. It really means the world to us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to our audience at home for joining us for this conversation. I hope you feel as inspired as I do about making a difference, starting with one act of servant leadership at a time. As a reminder, you can easily donate by clicking the link below and that we've also dropped in the YouTube chat.